Is it okay to use your name on YouTube, like the whole
Yeah,
thing, or?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Sure, you can use the whole thing. Yeah.
All right, perfect. So what kind of illnesses do you live with or illness?
So it's a crazy thing to talk about this because I've never met anyone that has the hyper adrenal subset of POTS, but technically I have what's called dysautonomia, and as dysautonomia is a big umbrella of just a cascade of different subsets that can fall underneath that set umbrella. So basically, long story short, I have the hyperadrenal kind of POTS where, for whatever reason, my body produces way too much adrenaline when I don't want it to, and it sends me into overdrive, tachycardia. Um, I have no control over it, because from what I've learned, I'm not a doctor. I'm far from it. I'm a car salesman for God's sake. So I don't know shit about medical. The only reason I know any of this stuff is because of the decade that it took to get to where I'm at with this diagnosis. You know what I mean? So I've never actually met anyone with it. So that's what blew me away whenever, I found you online and you know, found out that are living with this too, because it's so rare and people don't want to, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. People that don't understand it just think it's bullshit, right? So, but technically it's a hyperadrenal dysautonomia. I do have hypoglycemia too as well. And, I think they're both separate, so I got kind of a mixed bag of genetics there. So lucky me. So yeah, I deal with that too as well. So
I understand that actually. I think I have a problem with low blood sugar, which is
really,
interesting. Yeah, which is actually something I didn't think was anything related to anything, but I do notice that I get like really lethargic, I guess, if I don't have sugar. So I don't know if there's any correlation. I'd be interested if there'd be research around like
yeah, sure.
HyperPOTS and sugar issues actually. But like I'm not a doctor either, but just relatable, just so you know.
Yeah. No, no, that's crazy because I'm trying to piece that together. Like I feel like I'm a detective and I'm the only detective in my story. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
looking. I'm looking for the smoking gun, and you know, I just find it hard to believe that these aren't connected. But I mean, they could be separate because people can have multiple shit going on. You know what I mean? But that's
Yeah.
interesting to hear that you say that because I have that too. So, um, do you stick to any kind of diet restrictions?
Well, because I have mast cell activation, I have a lot of problems with a lot of stuff, so food included. But I have noticed with like hyperpots, I tend to eat smaller amounts, and then I don't get that like blackout from
Right.
my
Yeah.
blood pressure going either down or up from eating too much food.
Yeah.
Um, so I do that, and I also there's these salt pills from Salt Stick which
Yep.
are designed for people with POTS. And I take those, but occasionally I don't take them all the time
Yeah.
because
Sure.
with the high blood pressure, even though the doctors are like, take lots of salt, I'm like, I'm still scared of having like that 200 point of
Yeah.
blood pressure. So I just don't always take the salt.
No, I completely and 100% understand where you're coming from. Um, it is crazy because from what I've learned, there's three different types of subsets of it, and I know
Mhm.
I'm sure you know all this stuff. Um, but I didn't when I was going through it, and neither did my fucking doctors. You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
were just like, uh, well, I don't know. You let me know what you want me to how you want to do this interview. I can go off on tangents, so I don't want to do that. But
Hey,
um,
it's totally cool. Like sharing what you've lived with and just talking about it, I think is beneficial to everybody because I find like with HyperPOTS information, there's not a
yeah,
ton out there. So it's
yeah,
something that's very
yeah,
very limited. And I think having people like on the channel talk about stuff that they're living with will be a good
Hmm.
thing for other people to be able to relate to it. Because when I made that HyperPOTS video, I think that's probably like my most popular video on my channel. I wasn't
Hmm.
expecting other people to be like, I have it too, because like you said, I
Yeah.
haven't met anyone else with it. It's very complex, and it took myself a long time to get diagnosed as well. So I understand
Hmm.
that. Like when you said the decade long, I was like, yeah, like doctors
Yeah.
were like, oh no, you don't have this type of POTS, you just have dysautonomia, and or you have like regular POTS. I was like, but why is my blood pressure going so high? Like, and there's another correlation between mast cell activation and hyperPOTS. They can actually go together.
I've read that.
So yeah, so people that have problems with mast cell disease can have it as well. Um, but the whole like adrenaline dumping and that sort of stuff, like, do you have problems with sleep?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. As I drink my coffee. Do you still
Yeah, I drink
do you drink
coffee
coffee?
too. Oh yeah.
All right. Yeah. 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 Every doctor I've ever been to, they're like, "You stupid fucker, don't drink coffee." And I'm like, "Cool, I won't do it." And then I make it like 3 days, and I'm like, "I can't do this."
I have to, I can't function in the mornings because I don't
Right.
get the sleep anyways, because I'll go to
Hmm.
bed and I'll lay
Yeah.
there and then the adrenaline will start dumping and it's like I didn't even do anything. I didn't watch
I
anything that
know.
would trigger it. I wasn't playing a video game that would
So
trigger it.
annoying.
You know,
It's
I'm
so
reading a
annoying.
book about like
Yeah.
fixing my mind or something, and
Hmm.
then my heart's going nuts and I can't sleep. And then doctors are like, oh, just good sleep hygiene. It's like that doesn't help with adrenaline
Can't turn it
dumping.
off, man. You can't turn it
No,
off. You can't just turn it
no.
off. I mean, they sit there and they say you have dysautonomia, David, and then I say, okay, well, what can I do? Well, just think yourself out of it. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. The autonomic nervous system is meant to automatically do these things. Like I'm not supposed to be able to control this, you fucker. Like you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So these, these doctors, man, I
Uh,
swear, it's unbelievable. But yeah, I do have, problems sleeping. And it's so weird. I can almost get in a head-on collision on the highway, and I'll get no response. You know what I mean? Like something
yeah.
that I should have like fight or flight. I'm like ice, right? And then at midnight, when I'm trying to go to sleep and I have to wake up at 6 a.m. Boom. You know what I mean? It's 120 beats per minute laying down, and I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I guess I'm gonna go work out. So I mean, it's just so stupid.
It
Uh,
is. Like I
yeah,
tend to have more
annoying.
energy right at the end of the day.
Hmm.
And it's like this is the wrong time to be having this burst of energy. Like I'm lethargic and tired for most of the day. Nighttime hits and my body's like, okay, wake up, let's do stuff. Let's clean. Let's,
Yeah, sure.
do whatever.
Yep.
And I'm like, no, no. But I
Yeah,
totally get that.
yeah.
Very
My house,
relatable.
my house stays super clean after midnight, man. After midnight, my house is clean. So that's
That's great.
it's strange, man. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it all started for me back in when I was in my early or late 20s. I had just gotten married, and I was on no medications at that time.
Mm.
But over the years prior to me getting married, I would have these weird bouts of it, and I didn't know what it was. And so I still remember the first time. It was at 1990 fucking nine. And so I was in my apartment, had an episode, didn't know what to do, got in my car, drove over to my mom and dad lived, like 2 miles away. So I drove over there and I said, I think I'm having a fucking heart attack.
Hmm.
And, my dad was like, do you want to call EMS? I said, no, I want to drive because I was so amped up. I couldn't sit still. So
Yeah.
I drove myself with my dad in the car looking at me like, what the fuck is going on? And by the
Hmm.
time I got there, it was gone. And so it had already, worked itself out because these things happen and then they just go away. So that was the first time that it ever happened. So years went by of me having these weird, just random fucking things. And so, um, you're going to shit yourself when I tell you how many tests that they've done on me. I ended up going to a cardiologist because I thought it was cardiac related.
Hmm.
And they did a stress test. They did an MRI. I've done multiple CTs. I've done anything you can think of. They even did a heart cath. They even did a
Oh,
heart cath.
wow.
Yeah, yeah, they did a heart cath on me. And You're in Canada, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like in the good old USA, I'm sure as you know from what you
Hmm.
hear, it's people think the healthcare is great, but it's not really because if you got money, it's great. If you don't have money, it's they're gonna at that time I had great insurance with my job, so
Hmm.
it's almost like in the healthcare field here in America, if you have great insurance, then it's almost like getting pre-qualified for a house. A realtor is not going to talk to you if you can't get pre-qualified because they're not going to waste their time because they know they're
Yeah.
not going to make any money. So um, the I had great insurance at the time, and they said, "Well, we want to do a heart cath to make sure it's not heart blockage." And I went, "Oh my fucking god," you know what I mean? So they did it, came back clean, and they said, "Look, whatever's going on with you is not cardiac related." And I was like, "Okay, well, great." So a couple of years go by. I go to an endocrinologist. He starts doing blood work. My uh, norepinephrine and epinephrine were through the roof. And
Hmm.
he just kind of, just said, well, are you stressed out? You know, I'm like, yeah, I'm fucking stressed out. I don't know why these things are happening to me.
Yeah.
And, he says, well, yada, 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 no medication. So another year goes by, and then I go to another cardiologist, and they do an EP study on me where they took my heart rate up to like 200 to see if it was electrical. And they were going to do an ablation, which is basically just shock or kill part of your heart,
Hmm.
electrical wiring, in your heart. So they didn't find anything. So then he comes in and goes, I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to do a tilt table test. And I was like, okay, well, what is that? And he goes, I'll tell you later. I said, okay. And this guy's name, Dr. Ackberry, he barely, he's for English to be a second language, he speaks it well, but I mean, he's a super smart guy. But they took me down to the bottom floor of this hospital, right? And I mean, they had to like take the cover off the tilt table machine. It was like it felt like I was like walking into the hospital from Last of Us, man. I mean, it was like fucking like nobody had been down there for decades. So
Yeah.
they dusted off this old fucking thing that looked like a inversion table, and they put me on it. They took my blood pressure,
Hmm.
uh, laying down, 90 over 60. Okay, 90 over 60. Heart rate 40, like 40 something. I go really low, but when the tilt went like that, my shit shot up, and
Hmm.
the guy was like, "Bro, you got fucking POTS." That's what he said to me. That's the first time I've ever heard the word POTS in my life, and
Yeah.
so that went to a complete, I was happy, but I was also like, okay, well, is this a disease? Is this going to kill me? And then when I found out that it's just lifelong and it's not really, something that can kill you, it sure fucking feels like it. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
um, long story short, they put me on all kinds of different drugs. I've
Hmm.
tried. I've They put me on a metoprolol, which made me feel like
Okay.
I wanted to die.
Ugh.
Yeah. So I ended up on a protocol of a alpha blocker and a beta blocker,
Okay.
specifically propranolol and doxazosin. And basically, what those do is from what I've been told, is just shut down adrenaline. So
Oh
without them,
wow.
without them, I'm worthless. They've really helped. So I don't know if you're on any kind of protocol, maybe with your mast cell, because it's different.
Yeah. Well, I tried calcium channel blockers and beta blockers, and they all made my tongue swell and
Oh,
my
did they?
face swell
Okay.
and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm on something that they used to give to women that were pregnant with hypertension called
Mhm.
methyladopa. So it's a old blood pressure med. And when I first started it, I felt like crap because I was so used to having such high blood pressures and, being beet red all the time from having such high
Right.
blood pressure that when it started to go down, I was like, oh, is this what normal feels like? Like normal blood pressure felt like death to me. So
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
because it's just you're so used to being go, 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 and then you become normalized and it's like this is weird. So
Hmm.
but yeah, I would like something that would stop the adrenaline because I play video games and I'm not even like I play a lot of scary games, but the scary games don't give me the tachycardia. I play a
Yeah.
first person shooter that's kind of cutesy, like Fortnite, and then I start screaming and getting tachycardia from that. And I'm like, this is not a normal response, but
Right. Yeah.
that's HyperPOTS. So,
Yep.
and then
Now
like if there's something really stressful that happens, like in the hospital, it's like, okay, whatever, I'm fine. And then if it's like,
Mhm.
I don't know, my poor dog, he just yips a little, I'm like, tachycardia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Makes no
Yeah.
sense.
Fucking like my doorbell rings, you know what I mean, for like
Yeah.
Amazon, and I'm through the fucking roof, you know what I mean? So
I
yeah,
get it.
yeah,
I
you know
get
what I
it.
mean?
It's so weird. It's so weird. It's good to be able to relate to someone about these things. So thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
honestly, you're literally the first person I've ever met that number one, like, wants to hear about it, and share it,
Yeah.
because like I said, I've never met anybody. I mean, everybody I know, even my family is just like, this it's nothing, but if they really knew,
Yeah.
this thing has made me more of a understanding person when it comes to when people tell me they have some type of chronic situation and it looks like they don't. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
you obviously you look absolutely gorgeous, healthy, and I would never guess that. You know what I mean? I would never guess that you would have something, and so you never know what somebody's going through, and that has changed me for the better. I think, not to sound like a white knight, but I mean, it really has. It really fucking has. It really has made me, think twice about, trying not to judge somebody just,
Mhm.
when I see them at face value. You know what I mean? So, there are some positives to it, but that's something you said about. I think I kind of get addicted to the heart race feeling sometimes, it's in a weird like way, because when I take the beta blocker, I just feel tired. My heart rate
Yeah.
doesn't get above 80. So I time it. Like if I'm going to go to the gym, I won't take my second dose until after. You know what I mean? It's weird shit like that. So
Well, it helps you get through, right? Like, and
yeah,
I think it's hard too because when you have been so used to it being so high for so long, I had problems when I was like 19 and I didn't know what was going on. I'd wake up halfway through the night and my heart would be racing. And I'd be like, what is going on? Like, I feel like I'm having a heart attack or something. And then it would stop. I'd go back to sleep and I'd think nothing of it. And then when I was in my 20s, it started to get worse. And that's when I got diagnosed. So
yeah,
I can relate to you talking about how it like happened when you were younger as well, because it's been happening for so long. My heart's actually a little enlarged. I was going to ask, is yours enlarged? Do you know?
they what is it they call that? That's interesting. You said that. Is it myocarditis, or is that the inflammation of the heart? Whatever it is for the
Oh,
enlarged heart, they said that mine is a little bit bigger. Yeah, yeah,
probably from
yeah.
and I'm not a doctor or anything, but like my assumption would be from it beating so much faster with higher blood pressure
Mhm.
for a longer period of time and not being
Exactly right.
diagnosed. So it makes it bigger. Because I remember I went to the ER to have blood work done, and I ended up uh they they like called a code and stuff.
Yeah.
And they hooked me up to a machine just to check my blood pressure, and it felt like I was having sparks or like shocks in my chest. I don't know.
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yes.
and my blood pressure was over 200 and it felt like I was being shocked. And they turned the machine so I wouldn't see because they're like, we need to take you down to the ER. And they did an ultrasound right then and there to see. And they're like, your heart's bigger now than it was last year. And I was like, interesting. But that feeling, like, it
Yeah.
was so weird. I like collapsed because I was just like, what is this? Ouch, it hurts. Like, I'm being electrocuted from the inside. It's interesting you had that
Yes.
experience too. That sucks, but
Yes. I have those same shock wave feelings. It's like a shock wave in your heart. Like, it just
yeah,
comes right from the center, and they just happen. And it's
yeah,
just like boom. And then, you're like, what? What the fuck is that? And then boom, it just happens again. And that's, when I'm going through one of these episodes, the same thing, I get the same exact thing. I really
wow.
do. Yes, I get the same exact thing. And
It's
it
so
is,
cool and so shitty at the same time.
it is. I mean, it really is scary. Whenever when I was in the hospital one time, same thing happened. They were about to release me, and the doctor came in and was like, "Yeah, Mr. Brackett, you look to be fine." And when I sat up, in the bed, that's when, this is before we knew it was HyperPOTS. When I sat up, the cart that was behind, or the monitor that was behind me, my heart rate went from 40 to 120. He started looking behind me, and I was like, "What are you looking at?" He goes, "Nurse, get the crash cart." Right. So so what do you think that did to me? It was like, I mean, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So I was like, what the fuck? So, and
Yeah.
then and that's what it ended up getting me referred to the first cardiologist, because he was like, "You're fucked up. I'm going to give you some,
You're talking
I'm,
about.
it's basically what, have you ever seen the movie Idiocracy?
It sounds familiar, but I'm
Okay.
not sure. I have brain fog a lot of the time, so I'd
I
have
got
to
you.
see the
I get
cover.
that too. I get that too. That's a movie of, about the future, and that's, doctors are so stupid in the future that they just rely on the internet, basically, and
Okay.
this guy comes in, and he's like, "Look, man, your chart here says you're pretty fucked up." So that's basically what this doctor said, and he gave me metoprolol until, so I wouldn't die, until he got me to a cardiologist and passed the
Oh
buck. So
wow.
yeah, yeah. So it, I even ruled out, um, the possibility of a adrenal tumor. Have you ever went down that route?
I think so. Like I just actually recently had an ultrasound done on my kidneys, so I would
Good.
assume they'd
Okay.
be able to like see that. I don't know if I've ever had a ultrasound of my kidneys. I do have like other um random weird tumors other places, but that could be from mast cell. Who knows? So
Right. Yeah.
there's that. Um, did you have that ruled out?
Yeah, I did. And, if that's something that maybe wanted to, say, I've learned, or maybe wanted to look at, maybe try to rule that out, not to say that
Yeah.
it is, but I mean, it was just one of those things where I just wanted to know everything. I just wanted to rule out everything possible. And for a while, I was dead set that that's what it was, because I wanted it to be, so it could be the smoking gun, then they could remove it and I could be a
Mm-hmm.
normal being, you know what I mean? So, I really wanted it to be that, honestly and truly, but, a CT scan or an MRI of your abdomen, would show it, from
Okay.
what I've been told. But it can mean, you know, uh, that, high heart rate and, high blood pressure spikes and stuff like that. But, it's a rare thing, so,
Mm-hmm.
and again, these doctors, they don't know shit. The ones that you go to, at least the ones around, I'm in
Well,
North
it's
Carolina.
it's true. A lot of doctors don't know or they are not open to it actually existing, which is a
Yeah.
big problem. And
Yeah.
I've had doctors tell me like, because after I had something happen with mast cell disease and I ended up in the ER and they admitted me to hospital and they hooked me up to all sorts of stuff and they gave me IV fluids and I was telling the doctor, I was like, well, I have these conditions. And she's like, well, no, you don't. Like, your blood pressure is fine. I'm like, I'm hooked up to an IV bag. Of course, it's going to be fine right now. Like,
Yeah.
if you take me off of it and you see me in a couple days, it'll go back to really high adrenaline and all that kind of stuff. But
Right.
just the disbelief that I don't know if you've experienced, but I've experienced it in ERs. I've experienced it from all sorts of specialists that are like, you don't have these things. And it's like, but I do. Like in Canada, they have something, at least the part of Canada I'm in, is called Net Care. And they can go on there and they can access your file and see everything that you have disease wise. So it's kind of shitty that they don't believe patients. And why would someone make up having a rare complex thing like
Right.
that? Like it doesn't make sense to me. And that goes into medical gaslighting, so don't get me started on that. But
No, no, I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with you. The term idiopathic, I'm sure you've heard that shit a lot. I've heard that,
yes, yes. Oh,
yeah.
we don't know what's causing this, or like lately I've been having a lot of chills, and I'm like, I don't
Mhm.
know what it's from, but I keep getting these like chills or hot flashes, and I don't know if there's a correlation between like adrenaline and chills and hot flashes because my doctors are like, we don't know, we'll probably never know. And it's like, yeah, but that's also frustrating for a patient. And like you, I wanted them to fix everything that I have. Like I went
Right.
to
Yeah.
doctors and was like, okay, yeah, like tell me what it is so we can fix it. And then I got diagnosed with three rare things. So I was like, well, that's not what I wanted. I wanted you to fix it.
Yeah. I
But
know. I
yeah,
know.
I
I
understand
know.
that.
And just in a way, I mean, was it for you just getting diagnosed kind of a relief but because it was kind of like validation for, all the people that said, nah, it's just in your head, or no, it's,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with you, that kind of stuff. So I don't know if that was like that in your case, but that's what it was for me. It was just like, see, I told you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's
yeah.
kind of what I did, but I found that people around me had a harder time believing it because they're like, "Oh, well, I never heard of it, and therefore it does not exist," kind of
Oh yeah,
thing.
yeah, I got you.
And then I felt like, oh, I have to over explain, and then I'm overextending myself trying to explain all of the things that I got, and
Yeah,
that's why I started the YouTube channel because I was like, I feel like this
yeah,
will help me connect with other people who either know about it or want to know about it
yeah.
or even talk about it because originally when I started the channel I wanted other people to come on and
Hmm.
share because it's very isolating being sick. So
It is. It
mhm.
is. I mean, it cost me a marriage.
I was
So
gonna ask that, but I didn't know if that would be okay.
no, no, I'm an open book. I'm an open book.
Okay.
No, yeah, it cost me a marriage, honestly. I mean, and I don't, you know, uh, it's just one of those things, where, I hear this all the time where, two people are married, but, one person, gets sick and, the other person, just bounces out and decides to go another route, so it is what it is, it caused, a lot of just uncertainty, but I think a lot of it was, I think if I'm honest with myself, I think that at some point she started to not believe because there were doctors after doctors and there was no diagnosis and there was nothing. I think she thought I was fucking nuts. I think she thought
Mm,
that it was just something that was all, psychological. And I'm sure that that's probably scary to people that don't necessarily, have an open mind on, just because a doctor says it's not there doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And I was there at one point too, but this has changed me, like I said earlier, 100,000 times over. So, but it is what it is. So, I'm single. I've been single, for a long time, and I will say, chicken or the egg kind of syndrome. That this thing for me, I mean, there was a certain point time in my life recently, in the last like 5 years, where it would get to the point where I couldn't fucking leave the house, man. I like, it's not, I mean, I could leave the house, but I was afraid. This is what went on in my mind. Like, what happens if I go somewhere? Okay. What if I go to a movie and something happens in a movie and, I have this, because there's this weird feeling of whenever this happens to me and my heart rate goes up, my blood pressure goes up, I need to exit wherever, area
mm-hmm.
I'm in. And I think that turned into a physiological response from the POTS, but it also triggered, panic attacks to a certain extent. If I'm
Yeah.
honest, if I'm completely honest. So, I don't think that I was ever prone to anxiety before all of this bullshit, but I think that that's tripped, a lot of false alarms in the past. And it, it's gotten to the point to where, you know, uh, where I've had to kind of just let it go and just not give a shit if something happens, if I have one of these episodes, like, I can have these episodes now in front of people and they don't even fucking know it. And so I just don't even say anything because mentally I've told myself, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to fucking drop dead in front of them. I'll be dead. So it won't matter, if they say
Yeah.
anything. So, but that's a weird outlook to have, you know what I mean? So I don't know if you've experienced that kind of, anxiety or, so I typically tend to, like on Tinder, I just, I'm kind of a serial, like, dater, a couple dates. And then, uh, that's kind of it because I don't want to get close to anybody because I don't want to say, hey, I've got this lifelong bullshit that you're probably not going to believe, and and here's my medicine cabinet. You know what I mean? So I just, you know, I just kind of,
I
I'm kind of a loner, because of it.
I understand that. I don't tend to really go out, but that's because of like the mast cell activation stuff. So I have a hard time with a lot of stuff outside the house that can cause me harm. But I do understand the anxiety and the panic attacks. And when I was reading about HyperPOTS and how it does affect us, there is this impending doom that happens, or that
Yes.
can happen. And I think that is where that anxiety comes from, which has to do with like a lot of adrenaline in your body. And it's a fight or flight response, right? So you want to leave where you are, which makes perfect
Yeah.
sense. You want to get out of a space. And when I'm playing a video game, I don't want to get out of that space. I want to be able to win, but I can't win because my heart goes stupid. So I end up
Yeah.
choking in most video games that are competitive like, but I still keep trying because I'm like, eventually I'm not going to have this response to the game. I'm hoping
Yeah.
anyways. So
Yeah. But I mean, if that's what you love, that's what you love. You know what I
yeah,
mean? I
helps me escape.
I, I played the Callisto Protocol over the Christmas break,
Oh, okay. Yeah, that
and it's
one's a good one.
one of the funnest games I've ever played. A lot of people hated it, but I loved it. I loved it. So, um, yeah, I was always into games, but I got a little bit older and then kind of got away from it. The person I was married to wasn't a gamer, so
Yeah, that's understandable. It
sorry about that.
happens.
I had a phone. Can you still hear me?
Yep. Yeah, there was just a little bit of a lag for a second there.
Gotcha, gotcha. But yeah, so I've kind of gotten back into it, as of late. But it was very hard to find a PlayStation anywhere for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the pandemic happened. Everyone was stuck at home. So everyone
Mhm.
bought them, and then scalpers were selling them for really expensive, like triple the price,
Yeah,
which is
that's
crap.
insane.
So,
Are
yeah.
you PlayStation or Xbox?
PlayStation.
PlayStation, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
cool, yeah,
Yeah.
yep. Red Dead Redemption, I'm a big, I played the hell out of those games. Uncharted, I
Oh,
played
that's
the
a
hell out
good
of
one.
Uncharted. Yeah, my nieces are into a lot of stuff too. So I couldn't find a PlayStation for them over Christmas, so I bought them an Xbox. But they're playing the hell out of it. So
Oh, it's good.
yeah, yeah. But so mast cell activation that seems like a hard thing to
Oh,
navigate.
it is. It is. That's why I'm making my documentary to talk
Hmm.
about that, but also about how to like live inside a bubble, essentially. Like I'm still trying to live my life. I'm still trying to connect with people, and a lot of the connections that I am making are online. And some people are like, "Oh, you can't have good connections unless you're in person," which I disagree with like 100% because
I do too.
a lot of my friends are online.
Right. Yeah.
And they're more of my friends than people that are in real life. Because like real life friends aren't coming to see me, they're not checking in on me. They'll send me the odd message about thinking about me or something, which is sweet, but it's also like they're more of an acquaintance now than they are like an actual friend.
I got you.
And
Yep.
I'm a believer that you should be able to talk about what you're going through and not have it classified as complaining, which is
Sure.
something that I think is a big problem within the chronic illness community, but also like between health privileged people and non-health privileged people, is that talking about it is complaining, and I don't think it is. I think it's sharing your experience, and I think there's a big difference between complaining. I would limit complaining mostly to like work, like complaining about work or something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's complaining to be like, hey, I am struggling with this, like this is my experience and it's difficult. And if it's labeled as complaining, people are less likely to talk about it. Sorry, I went off on a tangent.
No, I love it. I love it. I love it. No, I love that. I absolutely love that. That's absolutely, you know, that's, when I found your video, about it, I said, man, I've got to reach out to her, because, I feel the same exact way. I mean, I have people, friends in real life that I grew up with and everything, and they're there for you, but not really. I mean, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah. Yeah,
it's,
it's
yeah,
there's
yeah.
like there's a weird divide there, and I think a lot of it has to do with not having enough conversations around illness and making it more of a like mainstream
Hmm.
kind of thing, and not making it like, oh, suffering is just going to make you a bitchy person or whatever. It's
Right.
like, no, I found it to
Yeah.
be quite refining, and I've worked on myself, and I'm actually also divorced myself, so I can relate in that regard as well.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
Um, you do amazing cosplay, by the way.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
no, it's quite amazing. So yeah, I did the normal thing. When I found your video, I was like, okay, let me check her out. I checked it out. Uh, y- y- um, you're very talented. at the risk of sounding like a douchebag. I
No,
mean that
you
too.
don't. You don't.
Uh,
You don't sound
um,
like a douchebag, just so you know. Um,
yeah, cool.
I do live stream on Twitch, so I'll like do my makeup and I'll talk about stuff, and then we'll play a game. It's usually me playing a game and then getting wrecked or
Mhm.
whatever. But I do a lot of the makeup stuff now more than costumes. I have a lot of
Yeah,
costumes, but I do really like to do the makeup. So I just kind of do that, and then I usually end up ranting and raving about ableism or chronic health stuff. So
yeah.
yeah,
Hey, you know what? I mean, I'm glad we connected. I mean, because
me too.
like I said, I think it's definitely a lifelong thing, and it's good to just get it out and talk to somebody that actually has been through it.
Hmm.
And that's like I said, you're the first person. You're the first person I've ever met. That's got it. Is there anything do you take anything for? Do you mind if I ask about your mast
Yeah, you
cell?
can you can ask. We are gonna run out of time in like 3 minutes ish,
Oh, okay.
but
We can do it for another time or something.
yeah, for sure. If you want to
Yeah.
have more conversations, I did write down a bunch of not conversations, oh my gosh, questions, words. I did write down a bunch of questions and stuff, so we can always do that another time. We could do like a series of
Yeah, sure.
videos or whatever
Yeah.
if you're up for that.
Yeah. I'm
Because
down.
I think
Sure.
talking about HyperPOTS stuff is important, and I think more people hearing about other people's stories will maybe inspire them to also share, so that or feel
Yeah,
less
sure.
alone more so than anything. Because that's why I started doing stuff, is because I felt so alone and like nobody understood. So it's nice to have
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Absolutely. And the medication that you said you were on, they had looked into that for my POTS too as well. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, the medication, I'm always on the outlook for, new. I'm sure you are too. I'm always,
Yeah.
you know, I have a chat GPT obsession at this point, trying to figure out, if there's any other kind of off label shit that I can, try to get my hands on to try to, make, all this better. So yeah, maybe in
Yeah.
another thing we can dive into, the medicine side of it.
Yeah, that would definitely be great. I know like my life has changed a lot from having
Mm-hmm.
hyperpots and the other illnesses that I have. So that would be an interesting thing to talk about. So I'll let you percolate with that.
Right on.
Okay,
Sounds
excellent.
good.
But I will let you go just so it doesn't just
Okay.
cut off kind of thing at a weird spot.
No
So
worries.
thank you so much for your time and being a part of my channel and doing this
Thank you.
interview. It means a lot, and I hope that we can do this
It was
again.
fun. It was fun. Thank
It
you.
was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Have a good
Take
one.
care. You too. Bye bye.
Bye.